Hi, and welcome to Mindfulness Inspiration with a Dose of Shenanigans. My name is Angel, and today I have a special guest. Her name is Bracha Goetz. She is a Harvard-educated author. She has a memoir about overcoming food addictions and is the author of 39 spiritual children's books. Thank you so much for joining me today, Bracha.
Thank you. Thank you, Angel.
You're welcome. How are you today?
Oh, wonderful.
Good,
Really happy to be here.
good. I'm glad. I'm glad that you're here today. I have your book behind me, and you can't really see the whole thing, but it's called Searching for God in the Garage. And it's about
Oh,
your
no, garbage, garbage.
gar-
There you
garbage.
go. Yeah. I wasn't
Garbage.
searching in the
Searching
garage.
for
No.
God in the garbage.
Yep.
It is about your food addiction and your journey toward your spiritual practice. And reading through this is your journal. I mean, your diary was named Twilly, and right, correct. And you vented about so many things. You wrote about Kennedy getting shot. You referenced Martin Luther King, and you were living in a very historical moment. It honestly reminded me of the Wonder Years. I've been watching the Wonder Years, and he references those things too. But you question many things that a lot of people today would question. You mentioned, why would anyone want to try to help this world be better? Look what happened. So do you think, how do you think the world is now compared to how it was back then?
Yeah. That was a very exciting time. Oh my gosh. The late 60s, early 70s, extremely exciting. Um, I think it was kind of a revolutionary time. Things were changing tremendously. What stays the same, people are always trying to make the world better. I mean, that's really, you know, when I was an adolescent, I was so confused about everything happening, and so right, the beginning of my book, it's my diaries, and then it goes into my journals, letters. It's almost like a documentary because you see me changing. Uh, the book was an experience. It's not a typical book. It's like as I wrote it, I came to an epiphany at the end of the book. I began to understand the thread through my whole life by putting it together. And it's not like I wrote the book, it wrote itself because it's a compilation of these actual things, these actual entries. So what do I feel? I feel people, what I learned on my spiritual journey, which I didn't know as a teen and what I was searching for, is that we all have a divine spark within us. We all really want to be good and do good in the world. And what I was writing then was, it was very hard to see that with Martin Luther King Jr., Kennedy, assassinations happening. It was like people were trying to do good and they were murdered. That's what I was reacting to, and well, that does happen. Bad things happen to good people. It's true, because this isn't all there is. There is more to life than just what we see in this world. And that's what I didn't know then. I didn't know about the world to come. I thought this was what I couldn't believe, that what we saw before us, this is all there is. And so I was searching for deeper and more. Like, when we die, is that it? Or what goes on? Like, I heard this talk the other day. It's kind of like unplugging a refrigerator. When you unplug the refrigerator, there's still energy. It's not flowing into the refrigerator anymore. It's going someplace else. That's our spiritual essence. There's still, the refrigerator dies, our bodies die, but we're more than our bodies. We are divine sparks, and we have spiritual energy that goes on and on and on. So we're here to do good while we're here in this world, but that's not the end. If it was the end, it would look really unfair. why do bad things happen to good people? But this is not the whole picture. There's a much bigger picture. And eventually we'll see the whole picture and we'll go, oh, now I get it, but while we're in it, we can't see the entire picture.
Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. I agree with you. And you also you expressed your teen years being a very difficult time, and I agree with that also. And it shows that we are all actually 99.9% alike, all of us, 99.9% alike. And that, very small percentage, people make it matter so much when it actually doesn't. Because a lot of feelings that you were feeling, in your diary, I've felt those ways. I'm sure other people and teenagers today, I'm sure they feel those ways. And so because preteen and teen years can be such a confusing and emotional time, what do you think, and you're a mother, and how do you think that parents can get their teens to open up more, to talk to them about different feelings and emotions?
Beautiful. Yes, when I was growing up, that wasn't done. Parents were not into talking with their children about feelings. Now it's much more so the case, so, and I think that's what I try to do in my books. Like, see, I was looking for an acknowledgement that I was a soul. And I couldn't find that. I didn't have a spiritual upbringing. Once we recognize that we're spiritual beings, then we recognize that we need spiritual nourishment. And that involves also being joyful and embracing all of our feelings. It involves recognizing when we feel pain and working through it and the challenges in life. It's all part of a spiritual journey. So an openness to spirituality, I believe it helps us to be more open emotionally, to have mindfulness, to have recognition, to focus. We can focus on our feelings, and through embracing them, we can help to move them along too. When we have a bigger picture, what I was missing was the big picture. So life seemed very confusing. The two things that I learned, very important things for the framework of my spiritual journey, is that we're all really good inside. We all have the sparks of divinity. And the second thing is that there's a good purpose to everything. That changes a whole outlook on life. Otherwise, we feel like we're just going here and there, and this thing is happening to me, and that's happening to me, and being blown here and there. But if we understand that there's a greater purpose, and it's a good purpose, that there's an ultimate goodness that changes the entire picture, it also opens it up for parents to be able to speak with their children. Once they have that understanding, then they're not so confused, and they can help the child to embrace life and enjoy life more.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I agree, and not like it's more like of a just open communication is what you're talking about, and not like forcing the child into like do this, do that. It's just sharing experiences and communicating with your teen about different things. I think that definitely it would have helped me. I think, it definitely it would help other teens. I agree with you.
Yes, and also bringing a lot of joy into the home.
Mhm.
It's so essential. Um, and how can a mother be joyful? How can a mother share joy with their child unless they're joyful? We have to nourish our own souls to be able to create a happy home.
I
Yeah.
agree. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Um, so, well, the next question is, what did you learn, like rereading, just like up until, not necessarily like when you go through like adulthood, like your younger years and things like that. Well, you've already mentioned some of the things you learned, but I'm just rereading. What did you learn about yourself, about your journey?
Yes, there's something that I love to share because I think this really helps people. This is my main purpose for being on the show doing podcasts, is to share about the pleasure ladder, because what I discovered is it's from ancient mystical knowledge. This is something, it's not so known in the world, but it's so helpful. There are 5 levels of pleasure, and they correspond to the 5 levels of the human soul. So as we experience these pleasures, we rise up in a more joyful state. The lowest level are all the physical pleasures, the natural physical pleasures in this world, which is like, I mean, all the healthy foods that we can have. It's music, it's nature, all because this world was designed for our pleasure. That's what changed my life, finding out that wisdom, that this world was designed for our pleasure. That's the reason for us to be here, to experience gratitude. So all the physical pleasures are the first level of pleasure. The second level is love. And love, by this definition, is not waiting by the phone for someone to call you. It's a totally empowering pleasure. In other words, it's you thinking, focusing on what you appreciate about somebody else. That fills you with a warm, emotional, uplifting feeling, and it's an even higher pleasure than the physical pleasure. So that's the next level up. The third level up is meaning, doing something meaningful and positive in the world. And the higher level than that, what's greater than meaning? Creativity. If you do something creative, you're bringing yourself into the world. And, it puts you in a zone where you don't feel like eating or sleeping. When you're involved in something creative, it's like it just totally encompasses you with pleasure. And the highest level of all is what you spoke about. It's transcending our limitations. It's when we realize that we're all connected and we don't see all the divisions. It's the clarity of total connection, transcendence, connecting to source, and connecting to everybody and everything. That's the highest level of pleasure. We get that like under a starry sky at night, when you have that sense of being a part of the whole universe. And the pleasure, it stays with us forever. Each of these levels is a more lasting pleasure, and each one fills us with more and more gratitude. So gratitude is what gets us from one rung to the next, and it is what brings us pleasure in this world.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I do want to get into gratitude. I'm sorry, I'm just reading through. I have so many notes about like your book, but gratitude is actually what helped you to overcome your food addiction. Can you talk about your food addiction, and how did you break the habit? Was it a slow process, or did you just go cold turkey?
Yeah, great. You know, what I realized is that I it was like binge eating, fluctuating with crazy dieting, one or the other. It wasn't eating in relation to being hungry. It was eating because there was an emptiness inside that couldn't be filled. And so I couldn't understand why, when I finally got the spiritual nourishment that I was seeking for years, why did I no longer have a need for the food addictions anymore? What did one thing have to do with the other? And that's the discovery that I make in this book, is that it's that we're spiritually starving. So we're desperately hungry. It's a genuine hunger, but it's not a physical hunger. It's a hunger for spiritual nourishment, for the joy, the pleasures, the deep pleasures in life, like I was speaking about, and an understanding that life is good. It's that deep spiritual wisdom, which are actually instructions for living. People say, we were put in this world with no instructions for living, but there really are instructions for living. This is the ancient, deep mystical knowledge, which thank God, if we study it, we will understand that this world did come with instructions, and we can really lead joyful lives through gratitude. When we eat something and we feel gratitude, it uplifts our body and our soul. And that's when we eat nutritious things. Like when we eat junk food, afterwards we don't feel good. It's not a great feel. We might feel good while we're eating it. Oh, because the junk food was designed to be addictive. And that's something new that's been exposed in the world. There's this a new book called Hooked, and it talks about how the food industry manipulated chemicals to make it the most addictive possible. Like sugar and fat, big concentrations of it don't occur naturally. In nature, it's not found in any food, big concentrations of fat and sugar, and it's in a way that it's absorbed into our bloodstream really quickly. That doesn't happen with natural foods. This has natural sugars in it. It doesn't have fat together mixed in with it. It's designed with the greatest intelligence possible to be only good for us. So these foods are nutritious and delicious, while the junk food is only delicious, designed to be addictive. So the more that we fill ourselves with the natural foods, we actually feel gratitude, and we just don't overeat natural foods. Like you just don't eat a whole bag of oranges, but you'd eat a whole container of ice cream because a person just wants more and more and more. It's never filling them. It's never filling them nutritionally, and it's not giving that joy to the soul that comes when you eat something on the lowest physical level that uplifts your soul and fills you with gratitude to the source of all these natural, wonderful pleasures in the world.
I agree. And thank you for sharing that. Actually, my son and I, we will eat a whole bag of oranges. But doing research, I totally agree with you about the sugar because um, it's as addictive as cocaine. And when I found that out, I was just shocked. And I was already too deep into it. And I'm like, oh my God, like my habit is just like being on drugs. So it has me like researching and like doing research and saying how like the 12-step programs work, because addiction is addiction was what I'm learning. And it doesn't matter if it's heroin, cocaine, or whatever. Like, me going through surgery, they gave me all those drugs and I felt horrible. And I was thinking, how can people, the opioids is what it's called. I don't know what exactly kind of drugs they were, but I was like, how can people like this? Like I felt horrible. I feel dizzy. I just want to go to sleep. But I guess people pick their poison, and like my poison is sugar, and everyone has their own poison, but addiction is addiction. And they created a monster. They created the sugar, which they don't consider it a drug, but it is. I mean, it's horrible for us, and they make it cheap, so it's easy for us to get, cheaper than fruit and vegetables. And
Exactly. And it gets absorbed too quickly into our bloodstream because they've taken out the protein, the fiber, and the water from the food, the natural food. And so it gets absorbed in an unnatural way. And that's why people get all diabetes is soaring, because it's so bad for our, and not only diabetes, different types of cancer, hypertension. There's so many illnesses related to the way we've been manipulated to eat these addictive foods. Exactly.
yeah, it's unfortunate. So what would you recommend for people who are dealing with food addictions? And especially like if they're dealing with food addictions while going through a tough time, like loss of a loved one or any other difficult obstacles.
Exactly. The main thing is to identify what brings you more pleasure than that addictive substance. That is it. We don't need to be restrictive in life. Bring more pleasure in. That you can continue forever. How long can a person stay on a restrictive diet? Then they go off. That's yo-yo dieting. That's what goes on all the time. It's so demoralizing for a person. Instead, recognize these 5 levels of pleasure. Bring more pleasure into your life. When you feel like just eating the whole container of ice cream, say, if I have 5 more bowls, I'm still not going to feel full because the emptiness inside is not going to be filled by this ice cream. You recognize that and you say, is it my body that's hungry or my soul? If I just open the window and I feel the sunshine or I feel a breeze, will I still feel like finishing up this container? If I turn on the music and start stretching or dancing, I was on another podcast and the person said he was just plowing through the whole box of pizza when someone knocked on his door. His neighbor says, "Can you help me with something?" He goes, he helps him, he comes back. He realizes, I don't want this pizza. I feel so good right now just having helped my neighbor. I'm in a whole different state. It's when a person is in the addictive state, it's like being in jail. They feel alienation, estrangement, loneliness, boredom, stress, all these feelings we need. And bringing pleasure into our life, it brings connection. It brings each level up you see is greater and greater connection, and gratitude is the way to get there. So when you eat, if you chew, even this is like a really basic thing, if you chew slowly, you will see how much more gratitude you have for what you're eating. You'll recognize that only the few seconds that the food is in your mouth and your taste buds are experiencing it, just if you have a few seconds of pleasure from the food. So keep it going. Chew longer. Don't be even preparing the next spoonful or forkful till you've sat there and mindfully experienced what's in your mouth. It changes it. It makes it into an experience of gratitude. And of course, if you eat healthy foods, you'll have much more gratitude. It's got more vitality in it. It has more connection to source. So it puts you in a higher state spiritually and physically. And that's exactly what you need. That is how we overcome addictions, by nourishing our hungry souls.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing those tips. I think those are wonderful tips.
They're unusual, they're not the ones that people usually say, but that's really what it's about. We forget that we are spiritual beings. We forget it because we all just look like physical beings. But like you mentioned about my book, The Invisible Book. There's so much that's invisible that we believe in this world. There's gravity, there's time, there's feelings, there's thoughts. So we can recognize that we are all souls. We're really invisible souls. But
Right.
we look like bodies because our souls are housed in our bodies in this physical world.
Exactly. I agree. And going back to the things that you were mentioning, the gratitude, the love, the meaning and connection. I totally believe that they are spiritual aspects, but it will overcome, like help you to overcome it. It'll help you to stay focused and, healed towards a better life and find joy, as you were saying. I totally agree with
Exactly.
you.
Exactly. If you feel any moment that we are experiencing gratitude is a moment we're not miserable. So the more gratitude we have in our lives, the less time we have to be miserable.
I
Yep.
agree. What we talked a little bit about you. You do yoga. What are some other things that you do to help you to find gratitude or to help you to just be more mindful?
Exactly. All those things on the pleasure ladder. It's exactly that. Let's take the lowest level, eating healthy foods, hanging at next level love, hanging out with people I appreciate, spending time with them, doing something meaningful in the world. This is what I do. I love sharing these concepts. This makes me so joyful when, helping other souls to shine helps my soul to shine. And being creative, for me, writing children's books, also dancing and yoga. Well, yoga's in the lower level with what could be. It's some go on several levels at once. It's actually a very spiritual experience for me to do. Dancing and yoga feels like a form of prayer for me, actually. And transcendence is learning the ancient wisdom of my heritage, and just feeling the awesomeness of connecting with people, like through these podcasts, like meeting you. I'm expanding my world. You know what I mean? When and this is something good that came from the pandemic. I would just hang out with people locally. Now I meet people like this through the podcast, like you, and I'm expanding my world into other people's worlds that I wouldn't come in contact with. You don't live right around me, and this is so helpful for our souls to touch, and connect. Like you said, we're 99% the same, and that's so important to recognize.
Yeah, I agree. And it has been a different experience, and I do like the reason why I decided to start doing the podcast is because I was at a point where I was like going through a lot of medical issues and like other problems with people. And I'm like, are there any good people out there in the world? And so I was like, well, maybe I'll try to find people. And so that's when I searched for people, and you're one of the good people that emailed me. And so that was my mission, is to find where are these good people at? Because, you just go through life and people, they cut you off on the road and they're angry. Like people are so angry, and it's a little scary sometimes, like the things you say. But I was like, what if I just find people who are just good people who want to make a difference and better the world? And
Beautiful, so wonderful. And also, like, some of my books are about preventing abuse for children. See, like, what I'm saying is, I know the world is a wonderful place, but I know that bad things do exist in this world, and all these angry people out there. We need to protect children. It's so important. So, although all my books I feel are about helping souls to shine, the books that are about preventing abuse, it helps souls to shine because, like, the title of my book is Searching for God in the Garbage. We get so much garbage piled on top of our pure, beautiful souls. And so it's hard to shine with all those layers of garbage on top. We got to peel them away. And sometimes we need therapeutic intervention helped in order to do that. We can't always do that ourselves. But in addition, from the inside, we got to nourish our souls so they can shine again. Because there's a lot of people suffering in the world, and we need to protect children, fill them up with spiritual joy from the very beginning, because so many people haven't had that in their childhood, and that's how we make the world a better place.
that is
Yeah.
beautiful. I agree with you. They do need to be protected. And as I said, you have 39 children's books. That is awesome. And so this is one of them, which the viewers cannot see it, but let's see. I will just rotate. I'm going to be sideways. The Invisible Book. This is one of many. You also have Matzah Hands. Is that how you pronounce it? Matzah
Oh,
Hands?
mitzvah, mitzvah.
Mitzvah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Mitzvah
yeah.
Hands,
Yeah, it's
Mitzvah
it's
Feet.
about using our hands and feet and mouths to do good things in the world. Like, that's what they were created for. So it's giving children an idea of all the good things they could do with their hands and feet and mouths, and yeah, that's what it is. Right. And the Invisible Book, like I explained, oh, there you are upside down. And it's so cute. Like, Invisible Book teaches us there's so many invisible things, and we see the effects of them in the world, just like we see the effects of the source of all in this world, even though we can't see the source. It's a spiritual entity, and we can't see our souls, but that's who we are in essence. Yeah.
I think that's a good reminder for adults too, to just remember the invisible things. We forget, we go through life and we become this character and we forget the simple things. And I think that's important to instill in children and adults though too.
Yes, absolutely. We all have to remember it. That's the challenge that we're here for. We were put here to interact with this physical world, but to extract the sparks of divinity from everything. So it's a challenge because it's hidden, and we have to actually go out and do that. In fact, one of my books is Where is God? That's it. It's about finding God everywhere. That's what we're here for. Yeah, and to have gratitude about that. We're here to experience the greatest pleasure possible. And the greatest pleasure is recognizing that this whole world is full of goodness that we can extract, like the goodness that you were seeking, and you created this whole podcast in seeking that in the world. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you're doing is beautiful too, taking your experience and helping others and just encouraging them to find. I mean, these are simple things we may think about them, but this is like, it's like, okay, we need to do this. You need to find gratitude, you need to find love, you need to do these things to help you to be better overall. I think that's important, and you're doing a great thing.
Thank you so
And
much.
especially through your children's books, you have just a variety of them, which all of them are on Amazon, and I will link them. But may I ask you what, so you were in medical school, well, you graduated from Harvard, you went to medical school. What led you to become an author?
Well, that was my spiritual search. I wanted to write the books that I didn't have as a child. I wanted to write books about deep spiritual concepts in a way that any little child can understand them. Because, like we have a saying in the Talmud, ancient Talmud, if a person learns when he's a child, what is it like ink written on fresh paper? It sinks in and it makes an impression that lasts for your whole life. So if children get these spiritual wisdom when they're young, they'll have it their entire lives to live more joyfully.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love it. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. We're coming near the end of the podcast. And the podcast again is called Mindfulness and Inspiration with a Dose of Shenanigans. So at the end of the podcast, I like to add some shenanigans, which is just a little game. And I have PG rated Truth or Dare today. Okay, would you like to choose a truth or dare?
Truth.
Truth.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have one in mind, or do you want me to just pick a random truth?
I could pick something about a saying, a saying.
Okay, what is your favorite quote or mantra?
Yeah. That's it. Okay. Well, here's one. Oh, it's hard to decide between two, but one is that we're spiritual beings going through a temporary human experience. That's who we are in essence. But I want to share one other one,
Okay.
because Jeff Bezos, he's like the head of Amazon, and I get such a kick out of this. His quote is, everything I have ever done has started small. I love that, because when you think of big, you think of Amazon. So I love that he says everything I've ever done has started small, because that's for everybody, for all of us. It's for breaking addictions. It's one little thing, eating one more apple instead of another piece of apple pie. It's anything, it's every time we do that, the joy is tremendous. That's when we're transcending our limitations and growing into who we can be. Yeah. So those are my quotes. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I love those two quotes. Those
Thank you
are
so
beautiful.
much.
You're welcome. Okay, and can you tell everyone where to reach you? Like, how can they reach you? And as we said, your books are on Amazon. But do you like have any other upcoming projects and things like that?
Yeah. Oh, my next book is Let's Stay Healthy. Really important for children, about how to stay healthy, including eating healthfully, exercise, everything. And coming out of the pandemic, that's really, really important. So that should be out really soon. But they're all, if you just look up my name, you Google it, the first thing that comes up is my Amazon author page, where all my books are in one spot. So, and my contact information is there too, if anybody wants to reach me. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, I'll definitely link everything. And it's been a pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate what you're doing. You're just full of so much joy and positivity, and I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angel. I think you are an amazing person. I love what you're doing and sharing in the world. And I just wish you continued good health, and may you continue shining your beautiful soul.
Oh, thank you so
Yeah.
much. You're so sweet. Virtual hug. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye, Angel.